Good evening and welcome to Foxborough Conservation Commission's meeting of June 3rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street. This meeting will be broadcast live and is recorded by Foxboro Cable Access. It being 7 p.m., I'll open the meeting. And just a comment, I'm fine. The surgery is better than the alternative, so I take the surgery. Do we have any other open meeting comments? Do we have some minutes we want to do real quick, like?
David said he was going to take these last ones.
Okay.
I'll take over in June.
We have two sets of minutes that tonight. One of them was April 29th, 2024, and that reviewed 12 Creighton Lane, 70 Mechanic Street, which is at electric company. And then we had a continued public hearing for the 25 Pumping Station Road, and that hearing was closed out, and the continued hearing for 204 East Street. And that is basically 6 pages long. Thank you, Diana. You did a good job. On page 5 of 7, on page 5, about the 7th paragraph down, there's something here that I think is just a grammar error. Mr. Hunt referred to letters from the Town Council, Kate Conley, explaining why DEP was mistaken in limited project decision, comma. Then Attorney Splain stated that was her opinion at the time. I think that should be a period and not a comma. Two distinct.
Yeah.
Or whatever, I just wanted to.
All right.
And the only other thing is the next to last paragraph, there's a part of the sentence says currently has no frontage as a triangular piece, doesn't touch his backland, semicolon. He, planning board, I think it should be the planning board.
Yeah. Okay. Everything else okay?
Yeah, on the page 6, 7th paragraph, near the end, just before the motion, Mr. Hunt wanted to know who went on the site walk, semicolon, members of the commission and the interim agent. Then he asked why no abutters, comma, it's private property under control of landowner. He didn't say that. I think.
I was told to him. Well, the Bob said that to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think someone else mentioned that. So somehow or another that should be corrected, that someone else mentioned it.
No, I
don't know if it was you or if it was Attorney
Probably.
Splain.
I'll take the blame.
I didn't want to get back and forth.
I may have said it's private property.
Yeah.
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 I know
Just
someone
kind
did.
of a summary, line
Yep.
of letters, because it's private property. I don't want to get into the back and forth stuff because it's
Yeah.
too much. There's already too much.
Yeah. All right.
I just wanted to point that that should be clarified. Other than that, there also was a request for certificate of compliance of 30 Pleasant Street, and the meeting then ended. Other than those amendments, I think we should approve of these minutes
As amended.
as amended.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No one? All right.
And the last set of minutes that I'm going to be doing is May 20th, 2024. That meeting, we reorganized the commission, and we also did 14 Jennifer Lane, and the NRC came and summarized the weed treatment program, and also the floating islands that they started working with DEP as to how they can remove some of the material and the trapped methane out. And then 24 Mackenzie Lane, Rich had visited the property owners to discuss some issues down there. And we had the conservation land update about the deck on the Lane property. Other than that, the second paragraph of that, the dilapidated sign at Lakeview, the Bill Me Home,
Yeah.
Should say that. Rebecca already told me.
yeah, that. Should say that instead of the. And then, DPW and the sign was removed by DPW and the workshop at the high school was fabricate a new one before the school year is over. And Chris bought the lumber for $35. He mentioned, that was mentioned that Chris was, actually went out and bought the lumber, which I guess we have to repay them.
Well, that'll be in the budget, so,
Yeah,
But-
it's
An
not
issue.
a bill, so.
yeah.
But it was mentioned at that
Yes,
meeting, so it
yes.
should be added in.
Yeah, okay,
I know it might be a little fussy, but
all right.
other than those amendments, we should approve them.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right,
That neighbor from Mackenzie Lane came in again and wants to know what's gonna happen.
okay. Being 7:05 PM, we have a continuation. No, this is new. 10 Goodwin Drive.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Foxborough's Wetland, Protections Bylaw, Chapter 267, the Conservation Commission will open a public hearing on Monday, June 3rd, 2024, at 7:05 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Foxborough Town Hall, 40 South Street, or via Zoom, on a notice of intent filed by Mill Street Preserve LP for the construction of a single-family home with associated grading at 10 Goodwin Drive, Assessors Map 63, Parcel 1. Portions of the proposed work lie within 100 feet of a resource area. The application is available for public inspection in the Conservation Office at Town Hall. This notice can also be found on the Massachusetts Newspaper Publishers Association website.
Mr. Gray.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name's Cameron Gray. I'm here tonight to discuss the notice of intent that was submitted for the project at 10 Goodwin Drive. I have copies of the plan if anyone needs any. If I could share my screen, I'll put it up on the board so everyone can see at home. So 10 Goodwood Drive is a parcel of land located within the Lawson subdivision, and it's listed as Lot 17. The property is located on the eastern side of Goodwin Drive, so when you first pull in the subdivision there, you reach that first intersection with Conway Lane. You'll take a left on the Goodwin, it'll be that second house lot on the left. So the wetlands that border Lakeview Pond are located just off the property to the east. So you can see my wetland line back here. And my wetland flags. The wetland resource line, as well as the subdivision roadway and infrastructure, were reviewed and approved by the commission and issued the respective Mass DEP numbers. So we are proposing to construct a single-family home along with the associated driveway, septic system, and grading. So the home, septic system, and driveway all lie outside the 100-foot buffer line. So I have the 100-foot buffer line right here in red. Just kind of trace it with my mouse. So everything's located out of the 100-foot buffer, but you can see the grading in the backyard as well as the clearing in the backyard will take place within that 100-foot buffer zone. So due to the time constraints, this project was constructed in 2 phases. So phase 1, which is currently underway, involved the construction of the home, septic system, which has taken place out of the 100-foot buffer zone. So phase 2, which is what we're here to discuss tonight, will be the work within that buffer zone, which again will just be clearing and grading. So we anticipate about 10,200 square feet of buffer zone will be altered due to the clearing and grading on the lot. The existing home foundation sits about 114 feet from the wetlands at its closest point, and the clearing and grading will take place about 35 feet from the wetlands at its closest point. The home is serviced by a conventional septic system installed to the north of the home, so you can see it's located just above here. It's underneath the proposed driveway. So the septic system sits 156 feet from the wetlands at its closest point. The majority of the septic system has already been constructed, and the home is currently in the process of being framed, so you can go out there and see it. Currently, an orange construction fence is installed along the 100-foot buffer line to ensure that no work took place within that 100-foot buffer zone. The erosion control for this project will consist of a silt sock with an orange construction fence installed along the back of the property, which I show here in red. So the erosion control will ensure that no work will take outside the proposed work area. And the erosion control will be installed after tree clearing, but prior to grubbing, and will be maintained till the site has been stabilized. I think that touches on everything. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
All right, maybe I heard you wrong, but I thought you said you were
Yeah,
putting
it's the
the,
one that we saw next door.
what-
This was just confusing because, so I apologize. I was out here last week and I thought it was the lot to the south that was, that one right there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know it was actually the house that was currently under construction. So I apologize for maybe not knowing exactly which lot it is. But, I mean, that's another discussion item, I guess, for the commission.
okay, but I thought I heard you say you were putting the silt sock in at the 100-foot buffer. And in the plan, it shows it at the 25-foot no disturb.
Yeah, so we did this project in 2 phases, just due to time constraints out there. So we installed an orange construction fence, which is out there right now, along the 100-foot buffer line to ensure.
Yeah, that is out there right now.
Okay.
This is we were looking at the lot to the right. If you're facing it from the street, we're looking at the lot to the right, thinking that this was
Okay.
the proposed area, because they're not clearly marked and they don't have designations. It's not that easy to see which property's which, but,
There's no lot numbers, they just have the signs up, there's no lot numbers.
yeah, so for instance, for this one, yeah, I mean, we saw the rear of the property and saw that the erosion and silt sock were there. There was no issues for sedimentation. So I just thought this was being a proposed house. So I apologize for the misconception that I might have given the commission, so.
Oh, this is the house that if we're standing on the lot that's partially filled and it drops off, is that number 8?
That's the one that one's to the right. That's the one we were standing on. We were looking to the left, so this,
I think I might have been looking at the wrong lot when I was out there as well.
Okay. Yeah, so this house is, when you go down the road there, it's the first house being constructed right there on the left.
Okay,
So just the front of the property has been developed currently. All the work has taken place out of the 100-foot buffer zone, but there is a house foundation out there. They've constructed a septic system.
Oh,
And
this is the
we,
next house down. So, there's a house that has no backyard.
that's this one. That's
Yeah,
this
so
one.
there's-
The
if
one
you-
that doesn't have that's exactly what I said. I said, oh, this is weird because this house does not have a backyard. You basically
Right.
have a steep drop off and that's your backyard.
Yep,
And that
exactly.
is this property that we're looking at. What they're looking for is, this is the second phase where they're looking to clear a section within the buffer to actually accommodate the
a
use of a
backyard,
backyard.
yeah.
Yes.
So you can see like my 100-foot buffer line goes along right here, and I'm just off the back of the house there.
So right now, when you go out there, you see the orange fence
Yes,
that's within feet of the back of the house.
Yeah.
That's the lot we're looking at.
Yes.
And that seems to be up on a hill. And so what you're saying here is that they want to cut that part of that hill down to give some backyard?
yeah, so you can see like they kind of just want to grade out and basically push that hill out in order to give them kind of a more flat backyard. So rather than it just dropping off like it is currently, we would be extending our grades out in order to accommodate an actual yard in this area up here.
So that whole back area, what we looked at, is still treed.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
still
it's still
treated, it hasn't been
vegetated.
cleared. or
So you
anything.
don't have the silt fence, silt socks up yet.
No, so no silt sock, it's just an orange construction fence to ensure that no work went beyond the limit of work before we came to the.
No, but I'm talking about what you're showing on the plan in the back. You haven't installed that yet.
No, it has not been installed yet.
Can I ask a silly question? This is gonna be silly. Why did you do it in two phases and not just do one phase and just do the whole thing and have that silt sock, I guess, where you currently have it with this project?
So we're just underneath the time constraint. I believe the client is from out of state, so they wanted to get going on the project and be able to
Okay.
get their building permits and all
Okay,
that stuff.
understood. So you wanted basically, before you came in front of conservation for securing a permit, you just wanted to secure all the other permits and get this under control?
Yeah, so they wanted to get moving forward on the house, and we knew
Gotcha.
that conservation.
Gotcha, understood, okay.
So before any further clearing, cutting, or anything is done out there, you're going to have that silt fence and sock installed, so it prevents the disaster we have down the street?
So we could mark it, but we're not going to install the erosion control before we do tree clearing, just because we don't want the trees to fall on or anything and destroy the erosion control. But once tree clearing has been completed, we'll install the erosion control back there.
So one thing to take in consideration is now the house is constructed, felling those trees, you can only fell them one way, right?
Yeah, away from, yeah.
So I guess that's one of the questions that I have, is that if you are planning on doing it, finding out finding out the easiest way of falling these trees, to make sure that they're on the property, because I presume this has been subdivided, this parcel is owned by one entity, right?
Yes.
So you basically want to make sure that you're felling these trees on your property and not, felling trees on someone else's property.
Yeah,
So-
creating a hazard.
So, obviously that becomes a little bit more cost intensive, either because you basically have to have a tree climber or somebody that's going to actually do the work. But it can be done. It just has to take a little bit more intuition when it comes to
Yeah.
what direction to take these
So
trees.
I'm sure they'll have a bit of a predicament once
Yeah.
we're right up against the house, and they'll
Yeah.
have to take their time there. But once we
Yeah.
finally get a little bit of room.
Once you get a buffer of safety to, fall these trees, then yeah, it becomes a little bit easier. But yeah, okay.
There's only one way out of there, too.
Well,
Trees and the
yeah,
brush.
the issue is now that the septic system's installed, they only have one way of entry and one way of basically getting to it, and that is going down the southern side of the house. And that's gonna be their means of access to come in and out, because you don't want to compromise the integrity of the installed septic system that you just installed.
So why not install the silt sock before any cutting or disturbing of the soil?
Are you gonna, is it the intent to stump and grind as of yet? I mean, once you guys get in there with the trees, are they gonna stump and grind at the same time, or are they gonna leave them exposed for a little bit?
Every one of those lots has been stumped out.
I don't have that answer for you right now, but I can figure it out.
So I guess the suggestion would be, this would be my suggestion, is that I don't mind, or I would not mind the removal of the trees, the cutting them at the stump, but leave the stumps intact, and when you are at this phase where you basically want to have the stumping and grinding, have the erosion controls installed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so do the tree removal and
Yeah.
then install erosion control and stump
Yeah.
and grind.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way you have a means of getting in there with a, bobcat or whatever you need to do to actually put in the sediment controls.
Okay.
So if you don't want to have the orange fence put up, it should be heavily flagged so that they don't go cutting into the 25-foot zone
Okay.
Yeah. Limited clearing should be flagged.
heavily.
Yes.
I would ask you to try to make precautions to not have the trees fall into like the healthy trees that are in the buffer zone, so that we've taken out healthy trees that are in the buffer zone as well.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's more expensive. They use cranes, I see tree tech cranes all over the place where it gets tight, unless you can fell them, north, south, and then not worry about.
You're gonna have to follow them north-south in this kind of scenario.
Yep.
Otherwise you're just gonna run into other issues.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they'll have to make north and south cuts on the trees.
Okay.
They'll use skidders to get it out of there. And prior to them cutting, could you make sure that officers called so that John can go out there and confirm that you've flagged it in the
Yeah.
right place and it's heavily flagged?
I think
Okay.
the plan would be to hold a pre-construction meeting, and obviously the tree cutters would be there, and we would discuss kind of what the plan of action would be moving forward.
All right, so I think I got everything. So we got tree clearing, and then we'll do stump and grind after the erosion control has been installed. Before we do tree clearing, flag the limit clearing heavily. And then before all that, we'll have a pre-construction meeting with John.
I think that sounds suitable. The commission's amenable to that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Alrighty.
Just one question. Bill, the access to the conservation land, is that next to this property or another one down?
Next one down, where the drainage basin
On,
is,
on the other side of lot 8?
Oh.
8.
to the left. So,
Left.
so if you're looking at the detention basin over there,
Okay,
first, it's to the left side of it's basically following the top of the berm,
okay. So that's on the other side of the next lot?
yes.
Okay.
Now, Bill, while you're here and talking about retention basins, I was out there. Now, to the right of this property, I'm not sure if it's one or two lots now because I'm a little bit confused. You've got a retention basin
Yes,
and you've got the overflow, but you have riprap there, but the overflow is to the left of the riprap, the pipe going out. Is that?
so what we typically do, and I don't know it off the top of my head, so you'd have, there's two structures typically on any type of basin. So the first one would be like the regular structure. It would be usually a catch basin looking thing with the pipe going out. Sometimes there's some holes in it to balance the flows. And then that's the one the pipe comes out of. And there's an outfall there with all riprap, right? Where the pipe is, then there's
Yes.
all the thing. And then to the left or
Yes.
near it,
Yeah.
that's the emergency overflow. So if that basin ever hits, it goes over the design storm, the 1% storm, that will activate. It's a separate, completely separate from that.
Okay.
Sometimes we put them together, but typically we don't.
Okay, but I noticed that has been used, the emergency,
Has it?
yes, and it's washing out, it's very close to the property line. there.
Okay, can you make a note of that? Well, I'll let Mr. Bonvy know, and
Okay, maybe it's because it's really not completed yet, but it looks like I'm not sure where the entry to that cistern or whatever you want to call it, the big structure, there's not a pipe going in, it's just, where it looked like it filled up and just went through there.
okay. Yeah, those are not complete. They're complete too. They're functional, but what we don't do is it's almost impossible for them to not get silt. It's just almost impossible. So what I like to do is I tell the contractor, when he's stripping it out and shaping it, don't take the bottom foot out. So the silt might go in there, and it will go in, and then at that point, when we're finishing the basin, when all the site is stabilized, then they can scrape out that bottom foot, and they're scraping out any of the silt that came with it. Instead of taking it down to the design elevation and putting in we have a mix we put at the bottom, gets silted up, so you have to take that out again. So that's typically the way, and I know that's the way those were designed. So it's not complete, but it's functional.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to keep this open for another?
I mean, I think the only conditions that we would need to have is just kind of what we kind of outlined to Mr. Gray this evening.
Okay.
And that's something I could draft up in an order for the commission. But basically, it's just procedure that they make sure the erosion controls and sediment controls are installed before any sort of stump or grading activity is done out there. I think that's the more important thing. The trees, obviously, having those flagged, the limit of clearing flagged. But besides that, I think this is a permittable project.
All right. So somebody want to make a motion to close? By the way, any comments from the audience before I do? Okay. Someone want to make a motion to close the hearing?
I will make a motion to close the hearing for 10 Goodwin Drive, DEP 157-638.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you.
Thank you.
At 7:10, we have a request for determination.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Foxborough's Wetland Protection Bylaw, Chapter 267, the Conservation Commission will open a public meeting on Monday, June 3rd, 2024, at 7:10 p.m. in the Galen Meeting Room, Foxborough Town Hall, 40 South Street, or via Zoom on a request for determination of applicability filed by Ryan Jordan for the construction of a 20 by 20 platform for a 12 by 16 shed at 16 Garrett Spillane Road. This is Assessors Map 12, Parcel 48, within 100 feet of a wetland resource area. The application is available for public inspection in the Conservation Office at Town Hall. This notice can also be found on the Massachusetts Newspaper Publishers Association website.
Thank you, Tanya. Mr. Jordan.
Good evening, Chairman,
Yeah.
board members. Ryan Jordan, 16 Garrett Spillane Road. Couple items. Number one was the construction of a platform to build a shed, and then the second item was the removal of the enforcement order. Oh, okay, so we'll go with the shed first. So it's an area that we reviewed. John, David, and Rich, we were out there last Friday. So where we were allowed to build a little backyard area, kind of runs off to the side. And somewhat, I guess, previously disturbed. And we're just looking to kind of do what we did on the other side and bring in some boulders and just build a little platform there, just so I can build a shed, have a little area over there.
Okay, David, you were out. Do you have any?
No, we pretty well, between John, Rich, and I, we measured out the area. We discussed what he wants to do, how he wants to do it, how the contractor would get to the site. Yeah, part of the work is within 100 feet, but it's all been disturbed and everything else around it's been coming back. Either that, he goes back into the back corner and cuts down some trees to stay completely out of it. But the area that's going to be, closer is really the retaining wall and the fill to make the platform, but the shed itself is not going to be within 100. So,
Okay.
and he's going to put up erosion controls. The first thing, right along the line that we had a picture of from the last meeting. So,
All right. John, any other comments?
I mean, I'm hearing from David that he thinks that it might be an acceptable project for a request for determination. That's what I'm getting from what he's saying there, so I feel the same. Obviously, Rich and David and I were out there. We measured the distances. It's in the outer edge of the vernal pool buffer, and it's also within an area that has been previously disturbed as part of the past project. So I'd say that, for something as a request like this, I think it's acceptable use under a request for determination.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that saving the trees is actually more beneficial for the vernal pool than saving that 15 feet of
Yes.
previously disturbed area.
Yes.
So,
Trees are very important for vernal pool shading
Yes.
purposes. Yes.
so
Any other comments? Someone want to make a negative determination? And negative is good for you, by the way.
Forward making a negative determination for 16 Garrett's Blaine Road, Assessors Map 12, parcel 48.
second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? So. You got the paperwork?
That's just a signature page, then you can, I'll send you this.
Oh, okay.
We'll get all the paperwork to you, so.
Appreciate it.
It's very boxy.
Did you guys want to inspect the erosion control before we do anything? I think that was mentioned.
Yeah, so that would be one of the conditions that we're gonna do is that you basically contact the office, once those sediment and erosion controls are done. And if the contractor wants to be present, we can have a conversation, just to make sure everything goes well for the project.
Okay, sure.
All right?
Thank you.
And then next we have the removal of the enforcement order. Any comments, John?
So I sent over some language over to Diana for the commission. It's basically language that supports a letter potentially releasing the enforcement action for the mitigation work that Mr. Jordan has completed on his project site. I don't know if that was shared with the commission, but it's definitely something that could be shared if needed.
He's done a lot of work, and he's done replantings out there and hand maintain the invasives. I don't know how he does that, but the buckthorn and some of the others that were growing like anything out there, you can see little ones, but not the big ones like they were getting away. So he's planted trees in there besides some shrubs and then one of the ferns and a couple of grasses. They're starting to catch.
Good.
So
It's a good naturalized buffer that he has created in light of some, I guess, occurred instances that were not of his doing. So he definitely has made amends for past issues. Sins, yeah.
Okay. So somebody want to make a motion for the removal of the enforcement order?
I make motion to removal of the enforcement order at 16 Garrett's Blaine Road, map 12, parcel 48.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None?
So I basically printed 2 copies of this letter. If you sign them both, we'll keep one, I'll get one to him, and everything will be kosher.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the progress you're making out there. It was not an easy start, that's for sure.
I'm not sure I would do it again, but it looks nice down there, and I think it's certainly starting to come back, so appreciate all the help and guidance from the board along the way. Does this close the order of conditions, or is that a separate?
No, so is the growth.
That releases the enforcement for the property. You still need, basically, when the growing season's done for those, you just have to basically submit a final report. So your COC can still go. I don't anticipate that you're going to be leaving your house anytime soon, right?
No.
Okay, so you've got time, I guess, from last year till, I guess that would be what, the end of 2025?
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, 2 years. So when that period comes up for the permit, you'll still basically still be active. But for instance, you can request a final COC.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
great evening.
You as well. 7:15, we have a continuance for 204 East Street. Okay. Diana, do you know if anyone else is zooming in? I see Lauren. I guess I expected someone in the audience, so.
We only have Lauren.
Okay. Mr. Buckley.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group. Mr. Spillane is here with me from Spillane Splains, the project attorney. And Lauren Clark from Pear Corporation is also here with us this evening. And so we had our last meeting on April 29th. And at that time, I think we had kind of talked through all of the issues. We had submitted plans previous to that that showed the changes to the drawings, and nothing has changed except for one thing that has subsequently happened, was that the DPW, and I'll put it up here in a moment after Lauren speaking, the DPW asked us, you know how the road comes out at the East Street, and then it's Brookside Drive is maybe, I don't know, 60 or 70 feet up toward the center. So the DPW said, look, instead of just ending your sidewalk there, can you put a crosswalk, which is just paint, and build a sidewalk on the other side of East Street and connect to Brookside Drive, which has a sidewalk on the other side. So we'd be putting a crosswalk again on Brookside Drive. So that is on the plans as well. That is within the commission's jurisdiction, because it's certainly within 200 feet of the river. But it's across the street, it's on the other side of the street. I would say that it's fairly de minimis, but again, that's for you to decide. I'll show it to you in a moment. But I think the big issue we'd like to discuss that was holding us up from the last meeting was this project had a lot of open orders and issues and stuff. So you cleaned up some of them at the last meeting, but there were two that were remaining open. And one of them was a superseding order of resource area delineation that was issued in 2019 that expired last month. We had filed a request for an extension with the DEP. We only asked for a one-year extension. And that was at Mr. Thomas's recommendation, that even though we'd already filed this notice of intent that we'll be considering tonight, if something happened and we withdrew it, then we would lose our wetland delineation. So we've done that. So that was part of the site walk that the DEP had last week. And then the next one was an order of conditions issued by the commission in 2010 for a return to compliance, where some wetlands were altered down at the bottom of that wall. The DEP issued an administrative order telling the owner to file a notice of intent, which was done. It was done by Pear, actually, at the time. And then the work was done. 3 letters, which Lauren is going to talk about, were filed with the commission back then by Briscoe, talking about the different progress of the work and the plantings, and then it went to sleep. Nobody did anything with it. Nobody followed up with it until we found it this year. So that, of course, had long expired. Reading that order, the DEP asked us, one of the conditions was that we had to ask the DEP to issue a return to compliance letter, which I've never heard of, John's never heard of, and lawyers never heard of, so that was great. So I called the DEP, I think I told you the story, I called the DEP and said, I have no idea how to file this. And the young woman, I think she was young, on the telephone said, I'll have to get back to you, because she didn't know either. So she went and talked to somebody, they got back to me and said, look, just file a Form 8A and go through the commission, and so that was it. So the DEP came out last week, and I'm gonna turn it over to Lauren now, so she can discuss the results of that meeting and the results of her investigation. She had filed a report with the commission. I think that you should have it. I think it was last week after the site walk with the DEP. So go ahead, Lauren.
Sure. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So hi, I'm Lauren Gluck with Park Corporation. And as Bill mentioned, we had a site walk. It was last Tuesday, the 28th, with Greg DeCesar, I think it is.
Get a little bit closer to your mic, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
could you please enlarge it a little bit too, Lauren?
Oh, okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is just a plan showing the restoration area that had been permitted and then constructed back in 2010 under that order of conditions that Bill mentioned. It was an area along the toe of this rocky kind of boulder slope bordering the lawn area at the base of the slope between the river and the slope, which is bordering vegetative wetland. So that area was planted with a mix of red maple, dogwood, and arrowwood back in 2010. And then some wetland seed mix. And then in some 4 subsequent reports between 2010 and 2011, Briscoe had filed those with the commission documenting that the area was growing in compliance with the order of conditions. However, mentioned it was never closed out. So it's been allowed to continue growing relatively undisturbed. And in order to close out the order, we did some follow-up inspections on May 14th. I went out there and inventoried the vegetation. I made note that there were some invasives throughout the area. Most notably right here, there was some knotweed kind of close to this pathway leading down the slope. There was some garlic mustard, burning bush, and some other species that we tagged with flagging, marked with invasive species. There was also a little bit of yard waste deposited in one side of the area. And then there was kind of like a little mat or a rug on the slope here, which this slope here is intended to be a wildlife ramp. It was at the time referred to as a turtle ramp. Species could use it to make their way up from this river area up through the site. So we made a recommendation to the owner shortly thereafter that all those invasives be removed, the yard waste be removed, and let that area revegetate, and then remove this rug from the slope. Then just before our site visit on the 28th with DEP, I went out there just to recheck everything, and the owner had successfully eradicated most of the invasives. I'd say like 95% of them were gone. They took the rug off the slope. This is the slope leading down for wildlife access. And then these are just some images of the restoration area right here. This is where there was a yard waste pile that was removed, but there's a good amount of notes there, like sensitive and jewelweed, that I think will take over the area pretty quickly. The plantings that had been done back in 2010, we actually counted higher numbers of all those species because it looks like they're naturally propagating throughout the area. So these were the numbers originally planted: 4 trees, 18 dogwood, 9 arrowwood, and I think our counts found there were more of everything except the red maple. There was one that was not recovered. However, there were other trees growing there. There were 2 white pines, a slippery elm, a spice bush. Those weren't plantings. They just kind of came in naturally. So based on our most current visit to the site, we think that the area is meeting the goals of that restoration order of conditions. So we're recommending that that be closed out. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to go down there and look at that, but you know, it's doing well. I think that it's well over 75% native cover. And now that the invasives are gone, I think it'll just naturally take over. There's a lot of jewelweed, a lot of, dogwood and sensitive fern and other native species there. And then when I met with Greg from DEP, he took a look at the area. He seemed satisfied with it, but that's kind of the commission's purview to review that. He didn't have any other comments on the wetland line regarding the superseding order of conditions. And as you probably saw in the email from Greg last week, he's planning to issue that relatively soon. And just has to kind of pass through the higher ups, get the signature, but he's anticipating issuing that soon. So that sums up that component of the project. If you want to ask me any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
As you know, I was out there and I was looking at it without going through the poison ivy, and it looked good from up, viewing it from up above. So I do not go through the poison ivy.
And I will say that I did go through the
there was
poison ivy, and I am comfortable with the area being successional after a 13-year, I guess, gap that we have here. So I think that the area has been established and bodes well for kind of mitigation techniques. So I'd say that it's a good product of kind of that span. So it did help.
So while we're talking about that, do you have the paperwork for the order of conditions for 490?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want that before you get into the other one, Bill?
That'd be great.
I think I'd like to get all the other items cleared out of there first. So,
Bill, I'm a little confused here. Is part of the mitigation that Laura proposed on your plans going into this area that was restored, that's recovering, and redoing it?
No. Lauren?
No.
Yeah, no, I didn't, it's further, it's close. It's closer to the,
Yeah, it's
proposed road.
up. Yeah, it's not intersecting with the replication area. This is at the base of the slope, and all the restoration, or the riverfront restoration plantings are sort of along the top of the slope. And then the replication area is down by the road. So this is, Bill, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I don't even think this is like.
No, they
in our
don't
project,
intersect
right?
each other. They don't overlap. There's no
co-mingling.
There's no commingling. They're separate areas. No, they did that intentionally.
So with that, does somebody want to make a motion for a certificate of compliance for 204 East Street, file number 157490?
I'll make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for DEP 157-490.
Second?
Discussion? Did you have a question, Rebecca?
Nope, I was going to make the motion.
Oh,
I
okay,
didn't need to.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, we got that paperwork taken care of. Now let's go back to 157636.
so I'm going to call up here, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to show you the area that was changed subsequent to the last meeting, the only change that was done in there. So I can see that. Let's see. There you go. Good. So this is the proposed roadway, as everybody knows, and this is not labeled, but this is right here, over here to the left up. So proposed road, Brookside Ave. So this is where the sidewalk was just going to come down and end. I don't know why that's saying that. Oh, I see. So the sidewalk was just going to come down and end because it's coming down this side of the street. And the DPW said, gee, makes sense for you to, could you tie into the sidewalk over here on the other side of East Street that goes down Brookside Ave? I said, sure, like I always try to say yes. And so this is the crosswalk, it's an 8-foot, it's just paint. And then on the other side, there'd be a handicap ramp. This is probably 30 feet of bituminous sidewalk, and then another handicap ramp, and then another handicap ramp, in order to make this handicap accessible that's there now, and then this would be the new one right here. So that's the change. Again, I think it's de minimis. Certainly not widening a road or anything like that, just an improvement in that area. And then other than that, Mr. Chairman, there's really nothing else we've asked. One of the things you've asked is that future path. I forget, we had quite a conversation on that, how we're gonna clear it. And I think what, at least I wrote down, is we're gonna clear it to about 5 feet wide and then put down wood chips. There's signs on either end, and then we're gonna block the entrance with rocks to discourage ATVs. I mean, they shouldn't be going on. At least if I was a homeowner and I saw somebody going around, I'd be stepping out. So I think that will certainly help. And because that belongs to the planning board, I've asked the planning board to make that a condition. The open space belongs to the planning board decision. So I've asked them to make that a condition of their, when they write their order, which I hope is next week.
Okay. Just for the record, we received another letter from Mr. Hunt. I won't bother reading it, but it's attached to the, I think you have a copy of that.
We do.
Okay, it came in late this afternoon, but I'll just make it part of the record. Any other questions, comments? Close it?
I think the commission has received all the necessary information to close this hearing. I think the applicant did a good job at the April 29th meeting answering all the commission's questions as it pertains to the Wetlands Protection Act and wetlands bylaw that the town has, which we administer. I think, discussions on how this project, impacts resource areas was discussed. And for instance, that the configuration as it's currently proposed proposes the least amount of obtrusive impacts through a resource area. It's furthest from the riverfront area, and it's also not actually going through a bordering vegetated wetland. It's going through an isolated wetland. So as it pertains to impacts and resource area impacts, I think this is the more desirable option and the better alternative than what was previously, looked at for in the past under a separate filing. So that's all I'm going to state.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Do I hear a motion?
You should ask if anybody's on Zoom.
Is anyone on Zoom?
You asked if there's anyone on Zoom.
Is there anyone on Zoom?
Okay, I guess not. So, someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that what are we doing?
Close the
Closing
hearing.
the public hearing for 204 East Street, number DEP 157-636.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
I
Opposed? No one? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
While you have Lauren there, do you want to ask what?
Oh, Lauren, are you still on?
I am, hi.
All right. All right. I actually have a question. I know sorry. What's the story with Panis Road? That was one thing I wanted to ask you.
Lauren, do you want to give a briefing on your report on Prentice Road? You can just give it off the cup. But before you do that, I have a meeting with the client tomorrow.
Okay.
And, yeah, it's the client. And so we're going to be discussing Lauren's report.
Okay.
And then what I want them to do, and I know we told you we'd have it by the end of May, it just didn't work out. Then what I want to do is have them develop a plan, how they're going to attack it, and then we'll come back to you and talk to you about it, or talk to Mr. Thomas, and then and that has to do with the, I don't know if you recall, but the order of conditions is expired for 35 and 45. There was restoration and replication in those orders. Some of it has been done, some of it hasn't even been started. So Lauren went out and did it. We had Lauren go out and do an investigation. She can brief you on it. And they're motivated to get it done. They still don't they still don't know how it slipped through the cracks. This is a big company. They're, they don't know how those orders just didn't show up on the title. So Lauren, go ahead.
Sure. So we went out, I think it was the very end of April, to evaluate the different mitigation areas on the property. So as Bill mentioned, there was a replication area to offset BBW impacts. There were also 3 restoration areas that were part of the project. One was a wetland restoration area where there was some inadvertent disturbance surrounding the driveway crossing that was replanted. The other area was a buffer restoration area to the rear of the building where there was some inadvertent disturbance in the buffer zone. And then the last buffer restoration area was kind of like a parcel at the corner of Panis Road in the driveway, which was a previously disturbed area that they had proposed to restore. I think it was about like 30,000 square feet in size that they had proposed to restore with plantings. But that, when we were out there, it was clear that had never been done. It was just kind of early successional vegetation. It looked like some of the debris and there were some debris and some spoil piles there previously that looked like maybe they had been taken out, but it was all just kind of early successional stuff, some invasives. So that whole area will need to be planted to be in compliance. And then the wetland replication area, it was doing pretty well. There were some invasives throughout that we tagged. We did an inventory of plantings. It looks like a lot of the shrubs have died off, but there's some new stuff growing in that wasn't planted that's native. It's pretty good. Also, there was some mowing done along the edges of that area, which it was supposed to be left naturally to revegetate. So I think some of the shrub mortality may have come from that activity. So we're recommending, let's naturalize that, put in some more plantings there, and remove the invasives there. At the wetland restoration area at the crossing, all the plantings were accounted for, and there's actually been a lot of new growth there. Pretty limited invasives, like less than 10% for the most part of those areas was invasives. So we're suggesting that just be left to continue thriving as it is. And then the buffer restoration area behind the building, that area has, a moderate degree of invasive species. Most of the plantings were recovered. Some of the species, like there were low bush blueberry planted out there, we couldn't find them, but there was a lot of herbaceous layers, so it would have been probably impossible to find those. And then, for the most part, that area was mostly native species, but, we were kind of reaching around 25% invasives. So we are proposing, we're proposing to the owner there, they should take those invasives out and then do some supplemental plantings to bring that area into compliance as well. So all in all, the areas that were done are fairly successful. There are some corrective actions we're recommending. And then that one larger buffer restoration area that was never done would need to be done, which would entail taking out any invasives there, installing loam, because I think as it is right now, there's very little topsoil. It's kind of just strip land. And then putting in the species that had been proposed, which I think it was a variety of trees like oaks and some understory vegetation. So that sums it up.
So it sounds to me that you're going to be a little busy then.
Yeah, I think that, it'll need to be monitored by somebody, some wetland specialist. So probably somebody from PAR would be out there. And then we assume that the Concom would want to see everything at some point. I don't know if you'll want to do a site visit before we go ahead and make these corrective actions, but that was just something I
we can definitely talk about it. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I guess just for kind of getting a sense as to when this is going to be on the commission's next agenda. I mean, we'd probably be looking at, more than 2 weeks, I would think, right, Bill?
So what's the schedule for this month? 17th? pencil us in for the 17th.
Okay,
You know, just pencil us in, and I'll just tell them, that will motivate them to move.
okay.
Plus, your replanting season is going to be getting close,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless we can get those 22 weekends of rain.
It's gonna rain on Thursday.
Yeah. John, were you
Yeah.
planning to look at this on Friday?
Yeah, I'm gonna let, Bill talk to his client and
Okay.
coordinate, and he's gonna probably reach out to me because he knows that I work Fridays for the town on doing
Okay.
site inspections, so if we wanna coordinate something this Friday, I definitely can make
Okay.
myself available. Other than that, you know, we can push it, you know, till next Friday, whatever works best with everyone's schedule.
Okay.
Keep me
Right.
posted.
Okay, I'll keep you posted.
All right. I'd like to get out there and see it again. It's been a while since I've crawled through that.
You know there's plenty of poison ivy there.
Yes, unfortunately.
Laura, can I bring up a different matter?
Yeah.
Paycheck Place, the soccer facility. You got a partial certificate we issued, and they have we listed 5 items that needed to be addressed. Have you have they done anything? And
I actually have a site visit there tomorrow. I haven't been out there since the last filing, so I think they're looking to wrap things up, but I haven't seen the site since then.
Okay.
So those are definitely items we're going to be looking at tomorrow, and we'll report back.
okay. Appreciate it.
All right, anything else for Lauren? Thank you and have a good evening.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. See you later.
We have a request for a certificate of compliance, 52 West Street. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, that, they did a good job. They were quick with that one, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Have you got the paperwork, Diana?
Good night, thank you.
Good night. Good night, Bill.
Good night.
Did you make a motion? Did you make a motion to sign this one?
No, I'm waiting for Dave to make the motion.
Okay. Make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for 52 West Street, DEP 157-632.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. Oh, here's that Linda.
So legible, right?
You were. Conservation land updates. We talked briefly earlier, but the deck at the Lane property needs to be refurbished. I had made a suggestion of possibly just overlaying it with a composite, but the building experts say that's not a good idea. So a plan is in action to have it sanded, repaired. There's a few places that need to be repaired. Probably have to pull up a few boards and put some new ones down. And Diana, you have some paint or stain samples or? Okay.
But first, so we asked about funding, what we have. So in our grounds maintenance, everybody do some math now, $4,735. And then there's something called a conservation gift fund. Anybody know what that is?
No.
Right here.
Do we have any money in it?
It has $1,608.64 in it.
Oh, hey,
So we got a proposal to refasten the loose deck boards, sand the decking, install 2 coats of deck finish. It would be $3,500. But they
Okay.
can't do it until later this summer, so we'd have to encumber that out of this. And in the meantime, the landscaping lady wants an amount.
okay.
I guess that's how she works. You tell her how much she has, and then she figures out what she can do.
Okay. I have heard through the grapevine that we may be getting a donation for the Lane property. How much, I don't know.
Right, the Lane descendants are having a family reunion this Saturday. So they asked about making a contribution for the upkeep of the Lane property, and they
Okay.
want to submit a check, and they wanted to know how to do it. So it depends on how big the check is. Most likely we'd go through the select board, but I don't know
Okay.
how much it's going to be. And
All
I don't know
right.
how many Lane descendants are coming. I've been talking to one brother, and he mentioned a sister. So,
Okay, but potentially we could use that for either repairing the deck or for the,
right, they would establish another gift fund, for Lane property maintenance, and then we could use,
They'd have a revolving fund set up for that
yeah,
property.
we do not have a revolving fund,
we have all kinds of funds, but,
not a revolving fund.
You can ask the town to set up a revolving fund for that property itself. And that's one thing that you can do, and that could be something that Diana,
That's something we should probably bring up. I know they established the revolving funds and they.
right. So here's the funds that we have. We have the Hawking Memorial Fund.
Okay,
It has $843 in it.
okay,
The Conservation Gift Fund, I already told you about that one. And Dave Risch Memorial Gardens has $20 left in it.
okay.
Then there's also Hershey Farm Lease, but is that ours? Is that the state's? I don't know.
I thought that was state property.
That is state property.
So there's money in that, and then there's something called the Taunton River Coalition.
Okay,
That has $82 in it. The Hershey Farm Lease has $5,800 in it. I don't touch any of these funds, so I don't know what
yeah,
they come and go. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
I don't know either. But Tanya, this is something that, the quote, the Friends of Conservation, if we can get something going with them, I know the Friends can acquire money and spend money outside of our direct budget. So if we can get something going with that, we might be able to use some of that money for the Lane property.
So we need to control the situation.
What's that?
We need to control that situation.
Yes,
Because
yes.
it ran away last time.
Yes, the last time.
Right, so the funds have to be encumbered by like the first week of July,
Okay,
Yep.
because the fiscal year ends June 30th.
yes.
And then they're going to ask, do you have any outstanding things? So that's when the encumbrance process happens.
Okay,
So we got till the end of them. Maybe we'll have that donation by then, and we could figure the whole
yes.
thing out.
Well, we should know after this weekend then.
I
whether-
would think, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
Revolving fund have to go to town meeting
Yes.
approval?
yes.
revolving funds have to be established at town meeting.
Is that the same place that you can get the wetlands filing fees to the town into
No,
a revolving fund?
No, I don't think
No.
so.
So, for instance, in Norton, we do that, is that some of the funds from our Wetland Protection Act do go to the town to pay a portion of our salaries. So there's a way that does happen, and that happens at town meeting. So,
I
when it-
think some of Jane's salary comes out of that
yeah,
as well.
and that goes at town meeting, and that's voted upon. The other thing with the funds is that there's separate funds when it comes to donation funds. And, it might be in the best interest of the town to take inventory of all the properties that require maintenance. And you can lump sum them all into one gigantic land management maintenance fund. And you basically can put the money into that and use that money towards all the properties versus just having one. It just depends on what the town direction is. Like, for instance, if Lane property is a huge priority, then for instance, you can have one separate fund just for that property. In Norton, we have one fund for one separate property, and then we have a land management fund for a couple other properties. So there's different accounts and things. It's just how the town wants to operate. So that would be a discussion with the town manager, Diana.
Finance director
And the finance director, yeah.
yeah.
Right, so the ground maintenance, the total budget for this year was $7,000.
And that's reasonable.
Yeah. So 2,200 got used by Carol
So we
last
have a memorial
season.
fund for that small park next to Dairy Queen?
Yeah. What was,
That's at
Sally,
$800.
is that the Sally properties?
yeah,
It goes into the Sally property, but she mentioned that's a memorial fund.
Is that the Hersey?
That's that little small park with the fenced-in area.
Bill Hocking Memorial
Hawking
Garden.
Memorial?
Has a plaque on the rock.
Yeah,
Because that area is getting out of control relative
Yeah,
to plants and the trees and
unfortunately, the
everything.
garden club is,
They said that they said hands off 3 years ago.
yeah,
And there was a gentleman that, when Jane was here, that worked on it last summer on his own, that works with the seniors at
Yeah.
the lane.
yeah,
But it still needs a lot more professional type landscape guy to go in there. And Jane was going to ask Brackett, Mr. Brackett,
Oh.
if he, if he could, look at it and then come up with, an idea of what to do and get under control.
uh-huh,
And I think the neighbor mows the lawn on the left-hand side up to the edge of the parking lot to
okay.
keep it down.
uh-huh,
It looked like it. I mean,
yeah,
we don't have a lawnmower.
One thing to take under advisement is that there are local landscape companies that are willing to basically contribute their time and efforts to do sort of, I guess, maintenance and upkeep on town properties for a tax write-off. So I don't know if the Conservation Commission has ever done that, but I've been doing that in Norton for a little bit. So that's one thing that we can look at, is to see if any landscape companies are interested in partaking in that opportunity.
do they get to put their name there, maintained by,
Yeah, and they can put
So-
their plaque, it's free publicity kind of thing, and it's, this property is managed and maintained by, as a volunteer effort, there could be a plaque or something like that, which they could do. It's good marketing, I guess,
Oh,
in
yeah.
a way, but also it's a good, technique for, having it for tax purposes, so.
good idea.
So, back to the question. Do you want Carol to do anything this spring? If so, how much can she spend?
What's our
It would be-
total
If I take
balance?
out this 3,500, it would be like 1,200 left. But
Okay, well,
this thing here is just for the labor. It says materials supplied by town of Foxborough. So that, I guess, is the stain.
yeah,
So we have a price for that. So maybe that would be another, it's 1,300 square feet. You know anything about painting things?
well, it should
50
say what
bucks a
the
gallon,
coverage
400
is.
square foot a gallon.
How many hands do we have on the Conservation Commission?
It's 1,300 square feet of area,
Yeah,
and
Stained
the
twice.
stain, I don't know what the stain covers.
One other question I have, does the town of Foxborough have a, I guess, a wood shop class in the high school?
Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
They're the ones that
Does-
are going to do the sign, replace the sign.
Well, I guess my question is this something that we want to ask them to do for, as, public service hours for students, and maybe some opportunity for them to use all their skills that they have kind of obtained through class in school to put them to the test and see if they can construct something at the Lane property? It's an opportunity. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well,
They,
Tony, the facilities manager, seems to think that the deck needs a deep sanding, like when you do the hardwood floor thing. So that's why
Yeah.
he wants the hardwood floor guy with his heavy-duty sander to come and sand it.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe we could get them to paint it, but it wouldn't be till the fall. I mean, school's
Yeah.
almost over.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
there. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
there for free labor. So
Yes. Do we, I can see them maybe, I don't know, it's not that difficult to put stain down. I can do that, but,
Yeah, I mean,
Kids
maybe
could do
you
it.
guys could do that. We just need to buy it.
yeah, yeah. But it definitely needs to be sanded down professionally, because it needs some TLC.
Well, actually, I mean, this guy would install it. He would install the 2 coats of the deck finish.
Yeah,
We just need to give him the stain.
yeah.
Pick a color, pick a
Okay,
transparency.
yeah. I would say a semi-transparent stain.
Right, so this is the semi-transparent stains. I kind of liked the new cedar myself, but you can pass it down to them. That's from Lowe's, so. Cabot
Now, I
stains.
don't know who's the, what color you like?
I'll go with
Oh, okay.
I second that.
I think I don't really care.
We're doing the shopping.
The later the
part
better,
of the
that's all
meeting.
I would say.
Shopping
I
for
like the reds or the greens, but other than that, I'm good.
The cedar?
New cedar looks great, sure.
Yep.
So what is this, is Cabot?
Okay.
Yeah, we all seem to
Yeah.
agree that one's good.
Gonna get a motion for the color?
It doesn't say what the coverage is.
So
not
it's
in
about,
He looked it up.
it's about 8, if we're going heavy, about 8 gallons. If we're going like to the number, it's 6.5 gallons. And according to Lowe's, it's $56 a gallon. So
Wow.
split the difference at 7 times, so it's about 350, call it 400 with tax for a stain.
All right, so probably call it 4,000 for the whole job.
Town is tax-free, by the way.
Right.
You don't pay taxes.
Oh, okay,
I know they have I know the town has an
An
account
account?
at Home Depot.
perfect.
I don't know about Lowe's, but, I mean, prices are similar.
Get the
so-
equivalent, I mean, it doesn't have to be Cabot, whatever it is.
Yeah,
But that's 2 coats of stain
Yeah.
that recommended too.
Right. Is that a water-based stain that? you have in your hands there?
Semi-transparent stain and sealer, all
All in one.
in one.
Is it a latex, is it water-based or is it a naphtha or,
It must be water-based.
okay.
I can't read that it isn't,
Fair.
but, so it's a one coat, not a two coat process.
So this is a 1,200 square foot.
the big deck.
That's a huge deck.
Yeah.
It's a very large deck.
So everybody agree with this, the cedar?
I make a motion that we accept New Cedar as the proposed stain for the deck at the Lane property.
Second the motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Opposed?
All right.
Diana, did is it Carol, the landscaper, did she mention like how much money it would be?
No, basically
She
her
would need to
email,
make it worth it?
basically her email said, here's my
Proposal.
whatever.
Did you get that?
How much is in the budget?
I think I
I'll
probably
take
did.
it all.
But let's see,
I mean, typically, when you have a contractor and you ask them, this is what we want to do, this is what we're gonna basically, they give you a price proposal as to what it's gonna cost. So, if someone's not willing to give you a price proposal for what needs to get done, then I would go look out for additional bids.
Yeah, I mean, she had one contract in 2020, and it was good for the 2020 season, and since then, she just kept working with Jane. Like, she increased her hourly rate last year, and Jane just said, okay. I mean, we asked procurement, and they said since it's under $10,000, it's flexible to do it that way, but I think,
Well, I
I think
think-
Paige would like a new contract.
Yeah, and that way, for instance, you can see itemized kind of cross, inventory of what's actually being spent on what.
Yeah,
I think, having an idea of what you're gonna be paying for, that she should put together, this is what I recommend, this, and this.
no,
I don't think
do
we've
either
had
way,
that.
Just go to town, of course.
No, I mean, because this, I mean, it's very informative, but it doesn't have a lot of, it has a few sentences about, here's what I'll do, I'll maintain this, and,
Well, typically,
that,
when I do bids and when I do stuff, I itemize it out by task. And they basically give me a number as to what the task's gonna be for each item. So if I have multiple things that I want them to do on certain properties or do other things, associated with property management, they give me a rundown of what each task is gonna take for monetary value. They're gonna spend $800 to do this, they're gonna spend $1,000 to do this. So that's what it should say and be provided, so that way, for instance, the as Diana, she doesn't have time going around see how much stuff is costs. They should just like basically a breakdown of actually what the itemized costs are going to be, so that way she can take that, go to the town manager and say, this is what we need to appropriate funds for these items. If not, we'll just go on to the next person and find out kind of what, is being, for resources. So I'd say that, you can ask her to give you an itemized, inventory of kind of what each task item is what it's going to cost. Because that's typically how I do things too, is if you give me a proposal that doesn't have a number value, I'm just going to go on to the next proposal from the next person that comes by. So, and they'll probably get a contract before you do, so.
Now, you say you know her, you've worked with her before?
I've worked with her, as a commission member in Easton. I mean, I can reach out to her. I have no problem in doing that. I mean, it's just.
Okay, I would appreciate, because the proposal she wrote, I
More like a
have,
narrative, it's not like a,
yeah, I have no way of evaluating it.
yeah.
So,
I mean, I can look through this, and, I mean, this looks pretty recent, right? This
Yeah,
is.
she just sent
She
it,
just sent this.
yes,
Okay,
end of May.
okay.
and there's one duplicate in there on the back, second page. Deck is in there the second time, but that's all right. Cut and paste somewhere.
Kind of like, Paige kind of said, it seems to her one or the other. The deck, would be the priority now. And, I mean,
Well-
I've been up there, it looks fine to me, but.
I guess the question is, how does the commission feel towards, I guess this is just for landscaping?
Yeah.
There's a senior volunteer who mows the lawn and everything up there, and there's another one who like pulls weeds and stuff like that.
Okay.
So she did more specialized stuff.
Okay.
But, I mean, she's been doing it for 4 years, so I think whatever she's done is established and whatnot. I don't know what else there is to do.
I mean, to me, if you've got an issue with the deck, I would think that would take a little bit more precedent than this.
Yes.
So, I mean, I would say that if the commission feels more comfortable that Diana pursue
Encumbering this.
encumbering the money towards the improvements to the deck,
Yes.
then we just need a motion saying that that's the directive we're gonna go. That way Diana can take the necessary steps to move
Okay.
this in front of this.
All right.
And then, for instance, we can evaluate this later.
In July,
Okay.
after July 1st.
Well, again, if we do get a donation, we can,
I mean, we can talk about it at the next meeting. We got plenty of time.
yes, we can discuss that,
The appropriation of funds can be discussed at the next meeting,
yeah.
or the meeting after that.
No, then we get it
And we're into July.
into
We
July.
only have one more meeting. in
Oh, that's
July.
right, we only have one more meeting before
Yep.
July
Yep.
1st, okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So, but let's, before we make any, do the encumbrance for the deck first. And
So-
we'll see what we can do with the landscaping after we see what we get this weekend, if we get anything this weekend.
Okay.
So,
All right. Do
I
you
don't
want
want
to
to
talk
spend money
about,
that we don't have.
do you want to talk about land management, my new job?
We're all
Everybody's
doing a
up to
little
speed
extra.
with all the stuff that's been going on at the Lane property, and everybody read Paige's email about the increased patrols, and
Yes.
the environmental police are going to go up there and check fishing licenses. Leah, the head senior worker, likes to call and berate me a couple of times a week
Yeah.
about all the stuff that she thinks should be done or not done or is not done to her satisfaction. She's mad at the DPW because there's going to be a fishing derby there next weekend, and the DPW went out over the weekend and mowed the lawn shorter than what should be for conservation or something like that.
Are there any requirements for having it cut a certain length? I'm just asking
Well, I
for a
think-
friend.
Yeah.
I think part of it was the, some of the grasses that Carol was trying to grow there. I'm not sure what, I don't know what has been going on up there because that was all under
Right,
Jane's
this was all,
purview.
Jane did this whole thing, like Jane hired all these senior people, she went up there, she worked with them, like nobody else took care of this was all her thing, and so now they're all like looking to someone to talk to all the
Yeah.
time, and I guess it's me.
So, I guess the question that I have for the commission is this, is how would they like to perceive the Lane property?
I don't want it to go belly up. We've invested too much money up there, time and effort, and it, as I call it the, Foxborough is the gem of Norfolk County. I call that the gem of Foxborough.
Right. It was supposed to be all the native plantings. This shows you how you can have a land without grass and just native plantings,
So,
kind of. What's the
I don't want
purpose of
it to
was.
go into disarray,
Okay.
but I'm,
But then again, if you're going to have these type of plantings and only one person with another person knows what's going on, it's not helping in the educational part because there's
So
no markers or
This,
anything like
this
that.
is kind of the discussion that I've been having a lot, and not to go into open space protection and preservation, because I could talk you for a couple hours about it, but, is that it's good for each property of significance for each town to have a land management plan. Develop a plan, which basically has a map and shows exactly what you intend to do with the property. If there are areas that you want to reserve for certain uses, say a meadow for, bird habitat, have that shown on the plan being that way. So for instance, if someone picks it up, who might not be here, in 5 years, commission member or whatnot, can defer back to the plan and said, well, the board back then wanted to reserve that area as native bird habitat, nesting habitat. Okay, then we know that that's kind of been designated. There's an area that's basically being replanted. Let's say somebody wants to plant a whole array of maple trees, oak trees, try to create forestation. We know that they're trying to basically do that in that location. It's having those necessary land management plans in place that help direct people that are on the board, other folks, education outreach, things of people that know exactly this is the intent for the property. So I've been trying to basically instill that with a lot of the new, because I'm rewriting the open space plan for my town right now.
Again.
Huh?
It's recent.
It's from 2017 and it's up in 2025, so I have to rewrite it, so, yeah. So I'm rewriting it right now, and basically, there's been more priorities, more addressing things. We just basically recently have redone our whole hazard mitigation. We have now a hazard mitigation plan that we're kind of divulging into that we're trying to get approved by the state. So flooding increases and everything like that, we're trying to look at ways to decrease flooding in town. So that's one of the main things that I'm trying to focus on with this. And, that's kind of something I'm getting at is as we kind of look at things, and that's why I asked the question, how do you perceive it? I think that's something that everyone needs to be on the same page as. For instance, the Conservation Commission is in charge of the property. If I asked you a question about, the property, me being, just someone who doesn't know much about the property, I would anticipate that, for instance, you would be able to, provide me that information. So, I'm just looking for guidance from you guys as to kind of what you would like with the property. And whatever I can do in the interim to basically help you and assist you with kind of getting that property in order, I'd be more than willing to help you with, so.
good.
Yeah.
Certainly appreciate it because I do not have the expertise for it, so.
Yeah. So, if that's something that, the board wants Diana and I to work on, like developing for the town, I think that's something that we can take on. Obviously, probably not right now, but I think in the future, I think that's definitely something that we can work towards, or work with potentially somebody who wants to be a local land steward of the property. Anybody out there? Just asking. But no, that's important too, is getting volunteers and people that are interested in preserving the properties for the town for use recreationally or for habitat, protection, things of that nature. So, like I said, if anybody out there is interested, please contact us.
Very good. Thank you very much, Sean.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Any other questions, comments?
Nope.
Anything else? I hear a motion,
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? No one? Thank you, Mr. Beck.